Leo Knighton Tallarico with another edition of Perspectives from the Sky. And it is the 29th day of April 2023. And we are right. Well, I'm glad I put the chat on. Okay, can you hear me now? Let me know. Let me know if you can hear me now. Give me some kind of message that you can hear me now, everybody. Judy Ann? Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sound now, yay, okay. So let me reiterate a lot of what I was saying. So we're in the middle of this eclipse season now, and we got the second eclipse. It's going to be on May. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Our second eclipse is going to be on May 5th, and it's going to be at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:34 a.m. Pacific. What I was letting everybody know earlier today is that how difficult this eclipse season has been for a lot of people, because there was like a solar eclipse on the 20th, and there's this feeling like, wow, things are moving forward. And then on the next day, Mercury went retrograde. And that's more like, okay, stop, reflect, rewind, go over things before you can move forward, like you were feeling. So it's been a difficult thing energetically, because on one hand, there's this feeling of going forward into this new world. And on the other hand, we're being brought to think about the past, people from the past, memories from the past. And that's brought a lot of stress for a lot of people. Is like they feel moved in two different directions. Like we're going forward, but why am I thinking about the past and not moving forward like I thought I was? So got to be patient. Mercury's going back direct on the 14th of May, and then there'll be a new moon on the 19th of May at 28 degrees of Taurus, and there'll be more of a feeling like things are moving more forward. This is a big movement forward. This is a big new chapter in our lives that we've been working up to, you know, but it's like we're going to get over the hump and move into this new chapter in a much bigger way. But temporarily, it's time to reflect and to think of where we've been before as a prelude to our continued movement forward. Those of you that are listening now, let me know if it's been rough this last 10 days or so. Has it been challenging for you guys? For a lot of people, it has been extremely challenging. Like I said, throwing the Mercury retrograde into all these eclipses, that kind of confuses a lot. And then it seemed like there was a lot going on. Okay, thanks, thank you. Yeah, and for a lot of people, thank you for responding, Judy Ann and Tameshka. I was letting everybody know that back in the 60s and 70s was the last time of the degree of revolutionary and evolutionary change like's going on now. So it's not easy on a deep level, because our consciousness is pushing us to make changes. And in a lot of cases, we don't understand what the changes are we need to make. We already thought we had come a long way in our consciousness. But there's always more, especially when things are so intense like they are now with the eclipses. And the rewinding of the past helps us to remember other times when we were challenged to evolve and to grow. And I was talking, I'm glad you guys told me that I looked up at the chat box, but I brought us back to the 60s and 70s. I'll talk about it again myself, and how back then, there was the Vietnam War, now there's Ukraine. It's going to get to be more stuff, by the way, in that regard. Feminism, rights of women were getting strong. You can see how much that's been happening. LGBTQ, trans movement, stronger. Back then, everybody was waking up that there are even gay people in the world. Of course, African Americans. We had the Black Panthers back then. We had Martin Luther King. We had Malcolm X. There was a lot of movement about liberating and freeing African Americans, Black people, for being oppressed so horribly, coming from slavery. And yet there were people who were fighting that. Culture war was back then too. We had people like Nixon on the one hand who ended up, giving up his presidency, which was good at the time, who was very conservative for the war, keeping things the way they were, keeping the silent majority happy, who had people like McGovern on the left, who lost by a landslide, but yet he actually got nominated for president. He represented that group on the left. We had horrible things happening. We had race riots that were happening. We had Kent State, where the government actually shot and killed college students on a campus at Kent State. So we had a lot of stuff going back in the 60s and 70s, a lot. And now it's happening again because it's time for more revolution and more evolution at the same time. And a lot of the things that we're going through right now, just keep that in mind. There's revolution and evolution going on. But something that's really important this time, we've got to bring things together. Temporarily, they're going to stay separate for a while, I'm afraid, on a global level. Watch the yin yang behind me. You know how important that is to me. And by the way, take a look on this side of me, and you'll see like lightning coming through a tree. Look on the other side of me, you'll see a nice peaceful scene in the ocean in Maine. And so the yin yang is, bringing the opposites together. Bringing the opposites together. And right now we're moving into a time period that's like back in the 60s, 70s, almost like civil war between the left and the right. It looks even worse. It looks like it could actually turn into civil war. That's potentially there. But what each of us can do is we do what's up there. That's part of the consciousness, of evolution of consciousness, is bringing things together. And that doesn't mean bringing things together where everybody is the same. This is why diversity and unity is so important. Because for Aquarius, too, it respects individuals who are different than everybody else. Don't have to be like anyone else. You can be just what you are. But still within that, there's the ability to link up and to be unified with everyone. This is what the Aquarian age is. This is what we're moving into. This is what we need to do inside of ourselves, is to make that link up. Be true to who you are. Don't lie about who you are so that you can be accepted. Stand for who you are. Be with it. But at the same time, don't hate those that are different. The us versus them is just killing people off on all sorts of levels, not just physically, but killing off our consciousness from moving into the new territory that we all need to move into. So there's that work that's internal. And I remember back in the 60s and 70s, I grew up in a little town outside Chicago called Cicero, Illinois. Infamous place because that's where Al Capone had his headquarters in the 20s and 30s. And you know that's the way people were in this town that I was in. Martin Luther King marched through town. He really did, through Cicero. And the inhabitants of Cicero, the residents of Cicero, threw rocks and stuff at the marching African Americans that were coming through town. Terrible town to be brought up in. And me as a young man, there was a part of me that had not opened up. I certainly didn't have any hatred in my heart at that time, but I had not opened up to how horrible it was, how African Americans were treated. My heart had not opened up to what women were going through, not at first. And so I had to go through during the 60s and 70s my own evolution of consciousness. Gay people, I didn't even know they existed. I opened up to that too. So, and now the challenges with trans people, gender fluid people, there's a lot of people having a hard time with that. I can understand it up here, how they have a hard time with it. It takes a while for people to open up to look at things in all new ways. And we need to come together, people on the left and people on the right, around these issues so that we can do the dance of this in an intelligent way. As much as everyone who's becoming trans, to my way of looking at things, has a right to move toward what it is that they feel that they are, to be true to themselves. That's important. I know, but for some people, it's like it goes against biology. So how can I do this? How can I accept this? There's only two genders when it comes to biological, to what I see, men and women. So there's an opening of minds and hearts because the universe is giving us this for a reason. And to me, the reason is that there's a need to balance male and female inside each one of us in a whole new way that we haven't done before. Like men just being one way, women being another way. There's a middle ground that's happening now. It's part of the gender fluidity that's taken to an extreme dramatic way by people that are making actual gender changes. But within all of us, there's this evolution of consciousness to bring in. But Jung was great at this. Jung said that all men had an inner woman called an anima, A-N-I-M-A, and all women an inner man called an animus, A-N-I-M-U-S. And he's becoming a prophet because people are beginning to realize it's absolutely true. If you really go inside yourself, you're a man, you can feel your feminine side, nothing to be ashamed of. And if you're a woman, you can feel inside yourself your male side. And so this movement of the trans, of the gender fluidity, is a way of bringing us to a new place by being in a dramatic place with it. But we need to come together, those on the opposite sides of this, so that we can, in an intelligent way as a community, move through this. Should we be allowing people that are children or teenagers to make drastic changes to their bodies that they can't change? Is that taking it too far? We need to discuss this as a community so that we can work this out so that it's best for everybody. So while we're in this eclipse season, remember, when you're getting challenged because it's time to make a change to move forward in a new way. Now, that could be in your inner world, in your consciousness, can also be what you need to do in your life. Is the job that you're on, does it betray or belie who you really are? Do you need to make a change? But then you're worried, if I make a change, how am I going to pay my bills? The economy's going up for grabs. So these are things that people need to work out. Are you in a relationship that's the correct relationship for you? Do you love each other? Are you respectful of one another? Does this relationship represent who you are now and becoming? Or is it just something that you were in the past that you're ready to move beyond? Important issues. And the eclipses help us to move forward. Now, at first, they may feel difficult and we're moving backwards, but ultimately, the purpose of them is to transform our consciousness and transform our lives and move forward in new ways. By the way, Deborah will be coming on at about 22, the hour. So out in the world, I noticed a couple of things happened around that solar eclipse. Number one is the war in Sudan. And by the way, it's a Muslim country, basically. That's what most people are. Arabs, a lot of Muslims. And the Wagner Group, who are an integral part of the Russian army in Ukraine, have a strong influence in the war that's going on in Sudan. Just know that. Another thing that happened around the beginning of that solar eclipse, RFK, Robert Kennedy, son of Bobby Kennedy, who got assassinated, nephew of John Kennedy, President John Kennedy, who got assassinated. He's running for president, and he's running for president on these planks. One, the immunizations, we have a right to turn them down. They're hurting people. And the second thing that he's running on is anti-war, anti-sending weapons to Ukraine, anti-war in general. So you can agree with those things or you cannot agree with those things. But what's interesting is a lot of people on the other side, on the right, have some of these attitudes. And now these attitudes are now on the left with Bobby Kennedy. So it's again, it's Mercury retrograde too, but it's again, think deeper as to what you believe in. Don't just make a choice based on what team you belong to, Democrats or Republicans. Make a choice based on what you believe is right, what you believe is what's needed in our world right now. But it's good that he's bringing up issues that are outside of the box of the Democratic Party, because then people who are in the Democratic Party who think differently than some of the ways that the Democrats are thinking can make choices that are outside that box. And remember again, Uranus is right in the middle of this lunar eclipse. It's conjunct the sun. Remember, it's a lunar eclipse, so it's sun opposite moon. It's a full moon. And Uranus is conjunct the sun, opposite that moon in Scorpio. And it's going to help us to break outside of boxes, to think in new ways, to liberate ourselves from anything that keeps us stuck. And remember, one of the ways to be stuck is to choose a team to be on without questioning what values you have that might be different than that team or that party. So we may come back next week. I'm sorry for the delay at the beginning today, everybody. We may come back next Saturday, depending on what's going on with this eclipse that happens on Friday. Or we may wait 2 weeks, but stay tuned. If things are intensifying like I think they're going to, and events are going to happen, then I want to make sure that we have the show again next week. As far as what's going on in the world, we got Deborah coming in just about 3 minutes. As far as what's going on in the world, the economy is going to go south. Us being a superpower and empire, that's ending, because the equality that we're moving into and the diversity within unity says that there can be no superpowers, there can be no empires. So there are more changes happening in the United States. The economy is not a fair economy. The capitalistic economy by itself is not right. Too many billionaires and then people that are poor. That can't work long term, and that's going to change. And so the economy has to go through some difficulties in order for us to get to a new place. As far as war goes, pay attention to these places now, okay? During the eclipses, and then July will be another time to look at it. And then next year, summer, autumn will be a super important time to look at these things. But start now, because things are going to change as far as Israel goes. It fits all of the eclipses that have been happening and what's going to be going on in July and August. So Israel with the Palestinians and with Iran, expect big changes. Expect Israel to be making big moves, probably militaristic moves. And also the issue with China and Taiwan. That issue is going to intensify as we get toward the lunar eclipse and into the summer. And that could erupt before people are predicting that it's going to erupt. Remember, all these things are part of the process of changing our world and changing our consciousness to move into the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius, which started, in my estimation, on winter solstice 2020. Remember also that Pluto's gone into Aquarius and will stay there. Well, for the next 2 years, it'll go in and out. But then after that, it's going to be there for 20 years. Pluto in Aquarius is extremely important because back in the late 1700s, when the American Revolution was going on, was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. Uranus was discovered during those same years. And now we're back to that place again. It is so obvious that the revolution in our world and the evolution of our consciousness are here in a powerful way now for us to move through. There's no going back to how things were. Find other ways to find yourself comfort now as we go through all these changes. But there's no going back to an old normal. The old normal's gone. Enjoy the time where you're reflecting during this Mercury retrograde. That's one way to go back to normal, the old normal. But in reality, we can't go back there. We're going forward to a much better world. Take care, everybody. And now, Deborah, hi. Are you ready to come on, hon? Okay, let's bring you on.
Hey,
There she
everybody.
is.
Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Deb.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Leo? And everybody?
Yeah, I can. But by the way, my microphone was not working and I did not have the chat box on, so I lost about 15 minutes of time. That's why I
Okay.
was still going when you were here earlier.
Oh,
But
that's okay. No worries. Gabe,
thank God for Temeshka and Judy Ann, alerting me to the fact that we had no sound. So I got some sound on and got about 20 or 25 minutes in.
yeah. Sorry
So
that happened.
yeah, but now we've got you, and I know you've got a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to kind of get off the stage, so to speak, and let
Okay.
you talk about Beltane and Wesak Full Moon and some other things.
Yes. So, hey everybody. So good to be here. I did not get to hear the beginning of the show. I was in a training. So I just came in a couple minutes ago to hear the very ending of what Leo was talking about. So, what I want to talk about, I always bring in the divine feminine, goddess, priestess, wise woman perspective. That's kind of my path and my work. And so that's what I'm going to do today is bring in that perspective in terms of what's going on right now. And the first thing I want to talk about is in the cycle of Venus, which I sometimes talk about here. I've been in a deep ceremonial journey for the last 4 or 5 years through the cycles of Venus. And right now we're in actually pretty past the middle point now of this 19-month cycle of Venus, which will end and shift when Venus goes retrograde. I believe it's late July. And then we'll start shifting into a new cycle of Venus. But right now, as many of you may notice, if you haven't gone out into the evening sky to look at the evening sky after sunset, so right now, because of the light and everything, it seems like Venus is super, super bright in the western evening sky right now. Now she's only there till probably around 9 or 9:30 my time in Arizona. But you can see her so bright. So Venus is in her ascending phase in her cycle. So Venus, just like the cycle, the story of Inanna, Venus Inanna travels to the underworld and goes through the 7 gateways, or 7 or 8 gateways, like going through the chakras down, and then she's in the underworld with Venus. And so Venus actually isn't visible in the sky during that time. And in the descent phase, Venus is only in the morning sky. And she goes through gateways where when the Venus and the moon come together, that's considered a gateway of Venus. So right now, we've gone through the whole descent in this cycle. We've gone through the underworld phase. And now we're in the ascent phase where Venus is rising. She's in the evening sky. She's rising up the gateway. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this past Sunday, the 23rd, really early in the morning, the moon and Venus joined together. And if anyone got to see it, it's so amazingly beautiful to see the moon and Venus getting close. And it's always at the crescent moon when they meet, either the waning crescent moon or the waxing crescent moon. Right now, it's right at the waxing crescent moon. And so we entered, as my throat is getting funny, we entered the throat chakra gateway on Sunday, the 23rd. And that's going to be for the next 4 weeks. And then we will enter the third eye gateway. So this is a time for the next few weeks. Interesting, during Mercury retrograde, we're in the throat chakra gateway. Since Mercury is connected with communication, it's, I think, going to be a time to reflect more on your communication issues, anything that's holding you back from speaking your truth, from expressing who you really are authentically, and any wounds that you have around not having your voice. And so many of us have issues around, having to be silenced and holding ourselves back, or not being able to communicate our authentic truth from our hearts through our throat chakra. So this is going to be a chance to really do a lot of healing and clearing around your throat chakra. And with Mercury retrograde, it's going to be more reflective. It might be not be as much in communication with others, but more in a reflective state within yourself of, when you just becoming aware of, am I speaking from my heart? Am I able to express myself? What holds me back? What are my blocks? And clearing them. And in an ascent gateway, it's also easier to bring in all the really positive, empowering energies of that gateway, which is I speak my truth with clarity and confidence. That's the kind of energy. I can speak easily from my heart with ease and compassion. So those are just some of the things around the throat chakra, that, because it's bringing in, as Venus is ascending, more the positive, transformed wounds of the throat chakra. So you can call that in. What are your intentions and your affirmations in this gateway around your throat? As I'm clearing my throat. So just become aware, really tune into your throat and journal about it. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about that's coming up on Monday is the sacred turning point of Beltane. And Beltane, as some of you may already know, also known as May Day. I always think of the midpoint. So basically, Beltane is one of the midpoints between the spring equinox and the winter solstice. The summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, actually, they're at a different midpoint because they're between their autumn and their winter. So we're going to talk about in the northern hemisphere, since that's where we are right now, and I am. So Beltane is a time, it's actually opposite Samhain. It's a time when the veils are very thin between the worlds, which means it's a time to see more, to intuit more, between the veils. And interesting that it's opposite Samhain. And this is a time when a lot of people, some people, spirits pass over during this time, and Samhain time, both those times are strong time. And I can say, both my beloved parents, both, my mother passed away the day before Beltane, the night or the morning before Beltane, and my dad just a week or so after the gateway of Beltane. So it's a time when souls cross, and also we can see in the other realms more easily. But Beltane, the deep significance of Beltane is it's a sacred festival and a celebration of spring, and this midpoint. We're halfway now, just about. I always celebrate it and honor it for at least a week, because at the full moon is considered lunar Beltane. And so this is the time, the festival of the sacred marriage. And it's the sacred marriage of the earth and the sky and the sun, which brings fertility to the earth. So we're honoring that right now, when all the seeds are stirring and the plants are growing, and we're getting towards our growing season of food and everything, and really honoring the sacred dance that makes it possible. If we didn't have the rains and the sun, the earth wouldn't be able to bring forth what she brings forth. And if there wasn't the earth, we wouldn't have any growth and fertility. So it's this dance of fertility, and it's this balance of, the sun and the moon, heaven and earth, and the masculine and feminine especially. And in still to this day, many people do the maypole dance. I know in Britain they still do this. In the Celtic tradition, it's one of the Celtic traditions, is they have the maypole, which represents the phallus, and then the ribbons that they weave around. They're weaving ribbons, which is weaving the energies of nature, to bring forth creation. So this is a really potent time of creation, fertility coming forth. and just notice that in your life, and also become aware of the sacred marriage within of the masculine and feminine, especially the masculine and feminine. So what is that like for you right now inside of you? What's the state of your sacred inner marriage? And just really bring your awareness to that during this coming week. You can do a ceremony, you can do a meditation where you actually go into your heart and you feel your masculine and feminine sides. And I think today that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a short meditation where you can start feeling that within, because this is time of celebration and fertility, bringing in creation, honoring the nature spirits and the devas and all the beings of nature, the elemental beings of nature that bring nature alive, and just really tuning into that and celebrating, dancing, just really honoring those spiritual energies, those nature spirits that really make a lot of what we see on our earth as it's blooming to come alive. So there's all the spirits on the other side and on the earth that are helping right now. So just really tune into that. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was, I'm sure Leo spent time talking about the full moon on Friday eclipse. So it's a super powerful, as we know, and as Leo's been talking about it. And I'm going to bring in a different perspective. And the perspective that I'm going to bring in is about the Wesak. This full moon on Friday is considered the Wesak full moon, which is the most considered by many people to be the most powerful full moon of the year. It's a Scorpio full moon, and it's, magnified, 1,000-fold at least with the eclipse there. And Uranus, as I'm sure Leo talked about. So what is the Wesak full moon, and how did it get that name? So Wesak is the name of a valley, the Wesak Valley in the Himalayan mountains. And for many, many years, spiritual initiates have been gathering at this full moon in ceremony to honor this most sacred time so the Wesak full moon is the time when the Buddha was born and attained enlightenment and left earthly incarnation. So it's this really sacred time. And every year at the Wesak full moon and the 8 minutes surrounding the exact moment, and the exact moment is 10:34 a.m. of the full moon, and that's in Arizona or Pacific time. So you can calculate that where you are. But the minutes, that time around that moment of the full moon is when initiates gather all over the world, even if they're not in Wesak Valley, like all over the world, Mount Shasta, in their own meditations, in different places like that, and sacred places, even in your own home. And they gather in sacred ceremony to receive the energies of the Buddha and the other enlightened ones that come forth at this time. So Kuan Yin, Buddha especially is the largest energy. So the Buddha actually descends into the Wesak Valley and brings that energy of enlightenment and light to the whole planet, along with, Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion, and all the Bodhisattvas of compassion. And it's also a time when the kind of the Christed Magdalene energy is also strong, and you might feel other enlightened beings coming forth. And they do a beautiful ceremony where they form a pentagram around a bowl of water, and they do a water ceremony, which is symbolic of moving into the Aquarian age, because the water bearer is one of the main, if not the main, symbol of Aquarius. It's the woman that pouring the water and shifting and going in. It's that transition. So at this time, the 3 days leading up to the Wesak full moon, so the day of the Wesak full moon is considered the most powerful. And the days leading up to it is the time of preparation where you start meditating and reflecting on the passing year. In many traditions, the Wesak full moon is considered the new spiritual year. So the 3 days before the full moon are called the days of approach and preparation, where you start preparing yourself, going within, reflecting on the passing year, seeing if there's any things on your spiritual path you need to let go of so you can welcome the new. And then the day of the Wesak full moon is considered the day of safeguarding, where you really receive the energies and you go into a deep state of meditation and receptivity, especially around the moments of the full moon, to receive the light of the Buddha and coming forth and bringing that into yourself. And then reflecting on your path of service and how you can bring these energies out to bless our planet and humanity. And then the days the days after the full moon are considered the days of distribution. And that's when you take all the energy you received from the full moon, from the Buddha, from all the bodhisattvas, all the beings that came to you, all the insights, everything that you received, and you start distributing that out to humanity through your work, through your relationships. So it's such a sacred full moon. And if you would like to learn more, you can visit my Facebook page. And also, if you get our newsletter, I always write a lot. I write a lot more details about the Wesak full moon and how to prepare yourself. So you can always reach out to me if you're not on our emailing list, and I can send that to you. You can just reach out to me at Elelia, which is Elelia, at Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. So I'm going to just do a quick meditation to just bring you into the awareness of this sacred time. This very powerful, potent time between two eclipses. And just take a moment as we're getting close to Beltane and just feel the energy of Mother Earth beneath you. Sending your love and gratitude into Mother Earth. And just imagining a cord of light, emerald green energy coming up from Mother Earth into your sacred heart center. And then just tuning in to the heavens, to the sky, to the great central sun, to the suns above you. And just imagine, and to source, this creation, universal source. And just imagine bringing down the golden light of source, coming all the way down through your higher chakras, into your crown, down, and meeting in your heart as the energies of the Earth Mother, the emerald green light and the golden light of the sun and the skies begin to dance together. And that's like the dance of the masculine and feminine, earth and sky. And just feel that. And during this time, just really tune into the sacred energy of the inside you, of the moon and the sun, the masculine and feminine, and the sacred marriage, and bringing them together. And beginning to prepare yourself for the Wesak full moon by meditating and journaling and reflecting on your spiritual year that is passing and what are the new energies, new vows you want to bring in. And I'm going to end now because I know it's time for the show to end. And I'm sorry I didn't get to do a longer meditation today, but there was a lot to share. So, whoops. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And we may be on next week. Stay tuned. And we have an important lunar eclipse, full moon coming up. Enjoy it. It means moving forward in life, transforming. It's good ultimately. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Much love. Oh boy. Honey, what happened? Oh, we're still live.